Simu, thank you so much for being here.
You're so welcome. It's such an honor, mostly for you, Ted. Woody,
I understand.
Less so.
I wear thin very quickly, so I'll catch up to Woody in a second. Can we make an agreement, though? I just heard before we started that you guys have a routine that when one of you says a joke that's really kind of lame, you go into this mock hysterical laughter. Can we agree to do this in this podcast?
Absolutely. Definitely.
Great.
Yes. And maybe going forward. You just got to have your laugh.
In life,
and,
yes.
But Simu and myself and Finn Cole, who's also in the movie with us, well, I don't know how you could have much more fun than we had. We really had a fun time. And some of it was in very tight quarters.
It was. It was kind of, it was kind of one of those situations where the set itself was so constricting, and those, it's like, I feel like those scenarios kind of breed the best humor. Because you just realize you got to make a joke to get through, because you're cramped in and like a bajillion things are happening around you, and you're like, oh my God.
And that situation is because you were filming Last Breath, which is a movie about?
It's about a team of commercial divers that work at the bottom of the North Sea.
Yep.
And it's based on a true story where, basically, the whole concept of they're called saturation divers is that they work, 100 meters with 300 feet below sea level. And in order for you to operate at that pressure, you have to, you basically have to live in a saturation chamber there's no bigger, really wider than like, I would say half this room.
Right.
There's no, you have very little space, very little privacy. You're like living on a space station, and you live aboard the ship in a little tiny saturation chamber. And then when you go down to work on the sea floor, you climb into this little tiny thing called a bell, and they lower that bell down, and it's all pressurized so that by the time you get down 300 feet below sea level, you're already kind of pressurized.
One quick question. So does that mean when you say that they live in there, so it's
4 weeks they stay
4 weeks.
there. So our movie is, it's a true story of a diver that gets caught. What happened on this particular day 10 years ago was that there was a diver, Chris Lemons, who was out, and his co-diver Dave Uasa were both underwater working, and the ship that they were tethered to starts to lose navigation because there's a storm. It starts drifting, and it starts to pull the divers and their umbilicals. And so Chris's umbilical actually gets caught on a manifold structure underwater, and it snaps, and he basically is lost on the bottom of the sea.
Did you guys have to go through any training, even though you're actors and you didn't have to really?
Well, he did. He had to go through extensive, because he's actually one of the divers. There's two go down, and then one stays in the bell. I was the guy who stayed in the bell. So he and Finn did quite a bit of underwater stuff.
We did 3 weeks.
But after I left, you were underwater a while.
Oh yeah,
for hours you'd be underwater.
Yeah, you were long gone.
Yeah. I was living the good life.
But no, you had a couple of rough days where it was just you and the bell, right? And it was like
without you guys.
Yeah.
That was a bummer.
Yeah. So the bellman kind of stays inside this egg-shaped structure, and you've got, imagine just like this tiny cramped space, and like hundreds of feet of umbilical, because basically as the divers go out, someone's got to be in the bell to like wrangle it. So there's Woody, like poor Woody's like learning how to do the job for real on the day, because they really just dressed in everything of what it would look like. We had like real saturation divers that came in and consulted a lot.
Yeah.
What was your training?
Never was Movie Star Blues a more appropriate song.
That was a genuine laugh.
That was good.
That was good.
He's a pretty funny guy. I got to give it to him.
Did you shoot in that chamber where you have to be on board the ship? Where you're, what is it called?
The sat chamber.
Right. Did you work together in that? Because I'm bringing up is
it wasn't an actual sat chamber.
No.
I mean, it was, but it wasn't.
It was close quarters, though.
You didn't have to breathe in helium and oxygen.
Right. There's a reason why I bring this up is when I worked with Woody, it was a huge sound stage, but his vegetarian farts were so horrible that he would shut down production. I'm just wondering
Teddy,
what happened with
Teddy,
you. Yeah, sorry.
Vegan. Go ahead.
Vegan, sorry. Vegan. Which gives
Another
it
genuine laugh.
an actual piquant.
They were vegan farts, to be fair.
Man.
You were really nice. I think you were really nice about it.
No, that was back when I didn't chew my food.
I see. There was this one thing. We had an eating scene. We had an eating scene where, like, for whatever reason, like, their characters were all, it's like all of the, the tricks of the trade is like when you eat on camera, you take little tiny bites, and you remember this? And we were doing this eating scene, and for whatever reason, like, Dave was like wolfing down the food, and he was like, "Are you gonna finish that?" And then he's taking Woody's.
Yeah.
And I just remember, like, before every take, this guy would just like heap stuff on his plate, because I had to, in the script, like, I had to finish whatever was on his plate, so he would like put just
add all
stuff on it. I'm just watching him.
He's getting more frustrated by the minute.
This is take 12 because I'm not that good of an actor too. It's take 12.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, oh God. Please don't make me do this
I
again.
disagree with that statement, by the way. You're a great actor.
Oh, man.
Pretty cool. So do you want to back up? How'd you get there?
How did I get there?
Yeah, from Harbin. How do you say where you were born?
Yeah, Harbin.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the coldest cities in China. Well, my parents immigrated to Canada. They were able to get scholarships to study electrical engineering at Queen's University, Kingston, Ontario. And then they were there for a number of years while I was being raised by my grandparents. And then I came over when I was 4.5, learned English, started school. Became something of a gifted child. My parents were very hopeful that I would follow in their footsteps and become like an engineer, or something that
Worthwhile.
Worthwhile. Yeah.
But before but you were raised by your grandparents for how long?
Until I was 4.5.
So that must have been wild, for suddenly your parents aren't there and you're being raised by your grandparents.
Well, I never knew my parents. So actually my grandparents actually felt like they were my guardians. And I never grew up with like a notion of like, I don't have a mom or a dad. I was just like, oh, this is my yeah and my nai, and they're the ones who take care of me. They feed me, they clothe me, they do everything.
Because your parents left. So
your mom was in Beijing.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. She was kind of she was with me early on, and then went to Beijing, and then immigrated with my father. And I really, honestly, just never felt like I would hear their voices on the phone, but I think trying to explain that to a 4-year-old, like oh yeah, your parents aren't here, and these are your grandparents, they aren't your actual parents, but like you didn't care, at the end of the day, it was like they're the ones who tucked you in at night, and that's all that mattered. And then one day when I'm about 4.5, my dad shows up and he knocks on the door and he's like, "Hey, I'm here to take you to Canada, to your new life. We're ready for you." And I was kind of like, "Who are you?" It was very weird.
Wow.
Like he was like, that feeling of like being a kid and like a stranger is like hugging you and is like lifting you up, and you're just like, I feel like everyone's expecting me to like embrace this man as if I've known him my whole life, but he, at that point, he just felt like such a stranger.
At 4.5. That's at 4.5. And you have visceral memories of that.
Yeah, very much so, because I remember it was very traumatic being separated from my grandparents. It was like that was the only home that I knew. And I felt like if you had told me, like if you had given me any sort of agency at that age of like, do you want to go with this man into a completely different part of the world, I would have said no. Would have said, hell no, let me stay here. I love it here. There's nothing wrong with my situation, but that was always kind of the family plan was that I was going to join my parents in Canada. I'm obviously very grateful for that now, but yeah, it was hard at the
must have been
time.
very hard to see then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say when you got to Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're living with these two people you barely know who are your parents. How did it take a while to adjust? I mean,
yeah.
Imagine.
I mean, I feel like we're still adjusting in a lot of ways. I mean, I think when you miss those years with each other, it was like getting adopted by my own biological parents,
That's
you know?
amazing.
And there was so much that we had to learn, but then also I was like adapting to life in Canada and learning English at a faster rate than they were, because by the time I was 7 or 8, I was already speaking better English. And my parents' English was pretty good. But, you know, it's just when you're in the school system and you're listening to it every day, all of a sudden it's like you're, you know, for all intents and purposes, you become Canadian. And then there becomes a culture clash of like, okay, now we're having trouble communicating and we don't have that kind of baseline intimacy of like being together from birth. And yeah, I mean, there were some really hard years there.
And their imprint, your parents' imprint early on in their lives was pretty intense, I would imagine, in China.
But they were kind of taskmasters and really expecting you to be the golden boy.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of kids from my generation were only children because that was the policy at the time, and so it was just like one child would like hold the entire, and especially if like that family made the journey to immigrate to a different country, it was like that kid held the hopes and dreams and the expectations of like the entire family. And that was me, and I feel like I did a pretty decent job for a hot sec. And I went to college and I studied accounting and got a job as an accountant. And then like, and then less than a year after graduating, I got fired because I was a shit accountant.
Well, thank God.
Yeah, thank
God.
God.
But by the way, this is the irony of life. Like you think the worst thing just happened to you, and it's the best thing. You have no clue that was the best thing that happened to you.
Oh yeah,
right?
I thought
Until
my
later.
life was over. Yeah.
But why did you end up gravitating toward? So you became like a stuntman, actor, extra, whatever.
Yeah, whatever I could kind of get my hands on. I think it was because
Wait, sorry. Take me through that leap.
Yeah,
all right. I got fired. I'm no longer an accountant. I know. I'll go be a stuntman. Was that clear to you, or?
No. I think what was clear to me was that what I had been doing up until that point was not working. And I mean, I should say I always had like a love of movies, and as an only child with immigrant parents, it was like you absorbed the world through TV and through movie. Like you just, it felt like being at home was a very isolating experience because it just did not reflect the world that was out there, right? It was like you were stepping into a time capsule and all of a sudden you got two roommates from 1970s China. So in order to learn about the world, I was just watching movies and watching TV and wanting to just escape into those worlds, And then I think the other part of it too is like my parents worked all the time, I was kind of bullied at school. So I just kind of felt like I wanted to matter a little bit and I wanted to, like have the spotlight on me for once. And so I had, Toronto is I would say it's like a small-ish, it's a bit of a satellite city when it comes to film production, but you've shot there. Like there's tons of stuff. You were in a movie called Man from Toronto that shot in Toronto.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff shoots out there, and I would hear like these stories of like friends of friends who wound up as an extra on movie sets, and those stories would kind of trickle through the grapevine. And I remember I would get so jealous and so interested. I was just like, oh man, I wish I knew someone in the industry. I wish I had an in, and I was on Craig's. I would like, when I was a miserable accountant in the kind of the depths of my depression, I would like go on Craigslist and type in, acting, like find me an acting job on Craigslist, just for fun, really, just to fantasize. And I came upon a listing for Guillermo del Toro's movie Pacific Rim, which was shooting in Toronto at the time at Pinewood Studios. And I skipped work to be an extra on that set. Because I just was so interested in it. It was like the listing was specifically calling for Asian actors, which I thought was a sign from the universe telling me that I had to do it. Because I mean, I was like, when are they going to ever ask for Asian? Anyway, you never ask for Asian actors,
right.
So I skipped work, went on set. Pretty much got found out right away, got fired like less than a month later. So, very clearly.
Oh, was that a part of what caused you to get fired?
Yeah, definitely. I would say. I mean, I don't know.
So it wasn't about being a shit accountant.
Well, there was also that. I did also fail the first of my exams.
From that moment on, though, you're hooked and you're in the business.
Yeah. I mean, I had no job, but I was like, I might as well give this a shot. It was never really meant to be a long-term thing, though. I got to say, as somebody who looked like me 12 years ago, God, I had no delusions that I would like become, all of a sudden I would have a TV show or like my own movie. I was like, oh, I would love to be the Asian guy that is working at the convenience store that gets robbed. I would love to be that guy who and that would be enough for me, And of course, you go in with that kind of thinking, and you're like, oh, maybe I'll just do it for a little while, and then you just get hooked. And I was pretty successful early on. I booked my first couple of like speaking roles here and there relatively quickly, and then I just found myself on set. And I think the more that you're exposed to it, the more that you meet people that are working in the industry, the more you just start to feel like, oh, maybe I could, if only I could just hang in there a little bit longer, maybe I could do it.
So tell me about that transition to finally. From scrounging around to finally getting Kim's Convenience and then that blowing up.
I mean, it was like, I've said this before, but it's like I had been in credit card debt for years before, I just kind of had convinced myself that was gonna be my life, and I had made peace with it. I was okay with the life of a starving artist. As you know, we all have to make peace with at some point. Like where we are, what we do, this is not the norm. We're extremely, extremely lucky. But yeah, I was, so when I got the call, I just cried because I knew, it was like lifting me out of credit card debt. I knew that I would no longer be the like black sheep of the family that I had become, because as we were saying, like when all of these immigrant dreams rest on this one kid and then he gets himself fired before he turns 23 and then decides to become an actor, you've got like, you imagine how my parents feel, and then you imagine how like the family in China feel, where they're just like, well, he went fucking crazy. Wow. See, this is why you should never leave,
And you were aware of that in real time.
Yeah. I mean, I basically, I used to go back and visit quite often, and basically what just happened is I just stopped getting invited back. My parents were like, well, we'll see you. We're going back to China for a bit, and we'll see you in a few weeks. And there was no like, come with, or like, it was just like, yeah, you stay here. We would rather pretend you don't exist.
This is pre-Kim's Convenience.
Yeah. And not to say that was the only reason why my parents are speaking to me now.
It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt. It definitely doesn't hurt things. But no, we had kind of done a lot of work prior, and they had in their own way made peace with it as well. But that was a huge step up for me. It was a great for our relationship because they were able to really see me make a living doing what I loved and what I set out to do initially. And if that was the happy ending to my entire career, I would have been totally happy.
Right.
But now I'm here with you guys.
I don't think you would have been totally happy.
I mean,
you would have wanted to keep going. You know what I mean?
You're right.
Like I sometimes think, if I'd have just been Woody on Cheers, like that's pretty fucking great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's hitting the lottery, But on the other hand, you also think to yourself, well, I sure would have liked to have done something else.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So then the transition from doing Kim's Convenience to when you got Shang-Chi Tell me about that.
So it's really hard for Canadian actors to actually start auditioning in the U.S. You got to get you got to get a visa. And in order to get a visa, you got to get an attorney who you basically have to prove notability within your profession. You have to apply to be an alien of extraordinary ability. That's what the O1 visa is called. So getting on Kim's and all the press that kind of came with that was enough to get me my visa. And once I got that, it was in about 2016, I started coming down to the States to audition whenever I wasn't shooting Kim's Convenience. And it was a tough.
And you had an agent in LA?
Yeah, I had a manager that I'd emailed out of I was like 3 a.m. sending out mass emails. And this one guy, Chris, responded, and he's still my manager today. Very, very great. Yeah.
Good for him.
Best email that he ever responded to.
We should be interviewing him.
Yeah.
What happened before you
He's
got that
damn
email?
happy about responding to that.
Yeah,
email.
he's pretty happy. He's pretty happy. And there's about 400 other people who are kicking themselves. They're in their inbox. They're like, shit, he did email me. So, but those few years were, it was hard because coming down to the U.S. with the exchange rate, we weren't making that much money off of Canadian television. It really wasn't I was living, but it was by no means a lucrative venture at all.
Right.
I was just kind of middle class working actor still. But I was hemorrhaging money and just trying to be in LA as much as I could because, again, I knew that, I love my home country of Canada very much, but I knew that if I wanted to pursue, like if I would attain any sort of long-term sustainability for my career, I'd have to go to LA. I'd have to make it in the States. And so I was just year after year coming out, auditioning. There were some close calls. As you guys probably know, being on a show, it can be golden handcuffs sometimes, right? Because you see a contract in front of you. You've never seen that amount of money before in your life. And they're like, but we're going to need you for 6 years. And you're not going to be able to do any other shows. And you sign on the dotted line and you're like, great, I just pay me. I don't fucking care. But then you go down to LA and there's all these new shows that come up and they're like, well, we can make it work with your schedule. We just need your show to sign off on it. And then there's,
right,
business affairs from one end to the other, and then before you know it, that deal's evaporated. You don't have my manager's calling me and being like, they pulled the offer, they pulled the test deal, and so it was a lot of years of that. It was a lot of years of honestly maybe just not being good enough, and me still kind of working through my skills as an actor, because I was still very much learning as I was going. I had no formal. I had a lot of formal accounting training, but very little formal acting training. And then 2019 rolled around, and it was like I just feel like been beating that door down for like so long, and finally it was starting to crack. And in February, I was on my first U.S. network TV show. I was on Fresh Off the Boat on ABC. And then shortly after that, I shot like a little indie movie in San Francisco. And then 3 months later, I was Shang-Chi. So it was like once I started noticing that first crack, like it all just kind of finally came down.
Wow.
And
what was the audition process like for Shang-Chi?
Yeah. So we got a call to put these scenes on tape, like dummy scenes. They were scenes from Good Will Hunting. And nobody would tell me what it was for, and so I did my best Matt Damon impression. I was like, "How do you like them apple?" And I put it on tape and I sent it in, and then we heard nothing for like a month and a half, and then
by then knowing what it was for,
getting more and more of an idea, yeah. And then but at that point I was like, "There's no way. I'll throw my hat in the ring, but like." There's no fucking way they would pick me. There's just too many talented people out there. They're gonna pick someone. Stuff like that doesn't happen to me, But then, about a month and a half later, and it was right around the time that we had a bit of a shooting break on Kim's Convenience. They were like, "Hey, are you gonna be in LA anytime soon? We'd love for you to sit down with the director." And I was like, "Yeah." I booked my ticket out. Met Destin, who you've worked with.
Yeah.
It was just absolutely phenomenal. And then from there, did kind of like a callback. And honestly, I feel like that callback was where I won the part, because it was like Destin and I in a room together. We were working. At some point, I was kind of like still on book. And then he was like, "Hey, how about we just throw the scenes away and we just kind of vibe and improv?" And I was like, okay, let's do it, you know. And I very clearly remember I came out of that room and I was just like, I was hyperventilating. I think because I had done so well, I felt like I had done well enough, and I couldn't admit it to anyone. I didn't want to say it out loud because I was afraid I'd jinx it. But I was like, I think I may have just won the part. And yeah, few days after that, I get a test deal, and then I fly out to New York, where they've like, you know, it's Marvel, it's a big company, you know, they set up this like full screen test with the wardrobe and the, you know, and the you know, you're on a soundstage with a full camera crew, and Awkwafina was there. It was my scene partner. She'd like, you know, generously given her time because she was already cast at that point to do a chemistry read, and then I blacked out. Some things happened, and then 2 days later, I got the call.
Wow.
That's great. So
Talk about stress,
when you got
right?
that call, you must have just been over the moon, huh?
Yeah, I cried into my pillow for a long time. It was like, you're not going to get more high stakes than that, you know? And
Absolutely amazing.
I just knew my entire life was about to change, and I, you know, was in my like 500 square foot apartment in Toronto, just like sobbing. And then yeah, 4 days later, they flew me to San Diego to Comic-Con, and then I was like announced in front of the whole world, and I was like on stage with Angelina Jolie, and I was wearing like these broken, you know, these like ripped jeans from Zara that were like $20, and just sharing the stage with all of these like Marvel superheroes that I just saw because Endgame had just come out. You know, it was like the biggest movie ever, and all of a sudden I was just there with them. So it was
What
fucking surreal.
And because of that
transition.
announcement at Comic-Con, you just blew up, right? As far as people recognizing you or knowing you, or
I mean, yeah, it was that what I would say was like a small blow up, and then when the movie came out and hit, you know, in the middle of the pandemic, for it to do as well as it did, it became such a conversation because, you know, the industry was struggling, and you know, we were struggling to figure out whether we would all survive the pandemic. And the movie ended up being like the highest grossing domestic movie at that point, until Spider-Man came and kicked our ass. But
But so that was in 2020, the end?
2021. So we shot in
2021.
2020, and then 2021,
Okay.
September, it came out.
so I have some. Now you're famous.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're pretty much current. You've gone off and made more movies since that. But
Mm-hmm.
did you lose something with fame? Did you lose? I mean, I saw your interview with Kevin Hart, which was a great interview. But you know, it is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
You know, it's great. It's wonderful.
Mhm,
You know, it's
mhm.
your dream. But you do.
You pay for it.
Yeah.
You pay for
You
it.
have to be willing to let some things go.
Yeah.
A lot of people I found could put their, you know, fears of being abandoned by you on you, and it's your fault. You're not going to be the same. Oh, he's changed. Did you get any of that?
I have and continue to have great people around me. I believe to be the best friends and family in the world. You know, my especially like my parents and I feel like have just been to hell and back, and we're just, you know, we're stronger than ever. I love them so much, and have a really, I think, thorough understanding of like their journey to immigrate, and really all of that being so that I could have the ability to pursue life on my
That's
terms,
great.
which was an incredible gift that they gave me. And so I think in my personal life, I've been very lucky in that I don't think that too much has changed there. You need the friends that'll give you shit at the end of the day, you know? And my friends
I
give
seem
me
to
a
have
lot
no
of shit.
limit of that.
No.
It seemed like, could we put a cap? No. But so how did your parents respond? They must have, when Shang-Chi came out and was such a over-the-top success, how were they, you know, how did they take it?
My dad retired, which is great. It was a I mean, I think before there would be no conversation of retiring at his. He retired at 60, and I know that he would still be working today if I hadn't gotten that part. And I
just
hadn't
to
shown
support
him
you,
that,
you mean?
Yeah,
Or-
I think he would, there was always a sense of like he would be squirreling money away just in case I needed it.
His loser son quit another
Yeah, his loser son.
accounting
Exactly,
job.
exactly. So all of that just I've just been really lucky with my family and all that. But where I feel like I've lost something is maybe just the in just the bigness and the speed at which it's kind of happened for me. In the sphere of like the social media of it all, I think is that I think I've lost the ability, it's kind of like you lose control of your own narrative in a way, because you're just kind of you're out there, and I think people feel like you're out there, and so they feel like based on what they see or what they read that they know you. And so it entitles them to give opinions and say things that are completely not true and based in reality. And I think for a while I really struggled with that, because I came from like a grassroots TV show where every night when the episodes would air, we would like tweet with our fans, and everyone was so kind and so great, and it felt like a small community, and everyone was supportive of each other. But there's something about the bigness of the last couple of things that I've been in, and that comes with like a global awareness. But that awareness doesn't mean that every single person is going to take the time to know you and who you are before passing some sort of so whereas before I would love to like read everything that was said about me, and like the internet really was like a place of support. Now it's like a very different place. And so I feel like a lot of what I feel like I have to do is, as someone coming into fame in this era, is like learn to step back from that and tune that out.
Which ain't a bad thing.
No, it's
mental health wise.
No, I think it's the best decision I'll make.
It feels like you were how you were raised, the immigrant, the child who everybody put their hopes into. Your shoulders were learning how to be broad at a pretty early age, so that this, with the movie, the first superhero Asian character, all of that stuff where people lay all this kind of weight on you, feels like you were almost trained to be able to handle that amount. Maybe? The chosen one?
Yeah. Maybe. No, I mean, I feel like many things have happened in my life in such a, I mean, I don't think I'm a particularly religious person, but I do feel like at times, like, just the way in which my life is unfolded, it's impossible to go through what I went through and not feel like there's just there's something weird about the timing of everything and how everything in my life has come full circle in a way. Like I remember, I was on my like college, hip hop dance team, like doing dance, competing with these other colleges doing dance, and my parents were like, "What the fuck are you doing? None of this will ever matter in your life ever. Like this is so useless. Why are you wasting your time?" And then I get cast in a Greta Gerwig movie where I'm out there, doing choreography to an 8 count. And like, it's just that there's just been so many of those full circle moments that it's just impossible to like really wrap my head around. So I'll say I've been very lucky in going through what I've gone through, and yeah, I mean, I feel like there is an element of like living with some sort of burden of expectation my whole life, which for better or for worse, I guess, prepared me for whatever this is. I don't know.
I mean, that's what a superhero is, right? I mean, carrying the burden of saving the world or the universe or whatever. Man. It's kind of all very perfect.
But now you're cornering me and forcing me to say I am a superhero, which
Feels
you
a
hear
little
I mean,
awkward.
if you put the words in my mouth,
I'm not the one.
God, what a-
yeah, you're saying it, I'll take it.
Let's have one of those laughs.
Yeah.
By the way, that's fucking great. That was my first real attempt at
That's a
it.
fun one, right?
That's
It's
good.
fun, right?
Woody really perfected the jaw movement as
Yeah.
well,
Oh yeah.
which is the
Okay, this may be premature, but I remember early on, I was very lucky that early on in the Cheers fame, like about third, fourth year or whatever, somehow I realized, or someone wise told me or whatever, that you can feel the energy coming your way, that because people know you all of a sudden.
everybody knows your name.
Yeah. And damn, that was good.
I deserved it. I
No,
deserved it.
that was a
deserved
good
it.
one. That's not a bad joke. That was good.
I know. Well, you
Thank
don't
you,
have to.
thank you.
But
laugh.
anyway, being an actor, celebrity with a lot of attention is like being a 4-year-old in a room full of adults who are all focusing on that child. You can spin a kid out like that if everybody's going, oh, wow, look at that little boy, And it's the same thing, I think, being a celebrity. All that energy can really fuck you up if you just absorb it. Somebody told me, or whatever, but it's power. That energy is energy. So if you use it and deflect it into something you care about,
Yes.
you can make use of. For me, it was oceans. So actors are the ones usually who stand in front of the tent, and say, hey, thank you for watching Cheers. Yes, let me sign an autograph. But will you please come in and meet this marine biologist who, she has something amazing to tell you. I survived much better dealing with fame, knowing I had something to do with it, to make use of.
Yes.
He's got something to do with it. He makes a freaking mountain of money.
Ah,
I told you my dad retired. I mean, that's
You're going to have to support your parents ultimately.
but I think it's premature. I don't mean to be saying, what are you doing, or anything like that. But does that ring a bell, or does that make sense? Or
yeah. I think.
how do you deal with it is what I mean. Because it is a
Yes.
crap load of energy coming your way.
Yes. I think it kind of turns. It can turn anybody into a narcissist, right? Like because all of a sudden you are the center of the world, and then you're right. At the moment that you start buying into it, it's like it's over for you. You really have to. I think in my very, very short time in the public eye, I think I've really realized that. That will come and go, and the eye of the world will come and go. But what you can do to be a conduit in a moment towards whether it's an idea or a cause or something. For me early on, at least, like this was pretty simple for me. Like even just existing as an Asian American person in the public eye, and being, even like somebody who could talk on press and not be like, and I say this with the most amount of love because I feel like I idolize people like Jackie Chan and Jet Li, but they were a different type of Asian character that I think was a lot more palatable to Western sensibilities of like, oh, here's like an Eastern mystic martial artist and who doesn't really speak English, and I was, I really just wanted to be the guy that could shoot shit on Kimmel or whatever and sit down and tell a joke. And that there was something even like revolutionary about that. So in the beginning, it was really about just the representation of it. And now I feel like, as an extension of just being more globally known, I suppose, is like, focusing and really trying to connect with organizations that have a global reach. Like, so I do a lot of work with UNICEF Canada, for example. I love talking about mental health because mental health is something that my community in particular doesn't have a lot of familiarity with. Like when you look at our parents, a lot of whom came from like extremely traumatic situations, didn't feel like they had any of the tools available to like really process what was happening to them And so a lot of it became, they took it out on their kids, on us. And so we carried a lot of that generational trauma, and we in turn became really fucked up. And so, without really hitting it on the head too much, it's like, my journey into therapy has been really awesome. I want to share that as much as I can so that people like me feel like those conversations are normalized. And so, I've been doing a lot of work with an organization called Culture City, for example, which is all about invisible illness, right? All about the diseases that afflict us that you would not know walking down the street. And what I've really, what I think is true is that everyone's dealing with their stuff. We all put on a brave face to step out into the world, but we're all to some degree broken in our own way and trying to heal, and that's okay. And wanting to share that message with the world too. So among other things.
You are a rock
So
star.
eloquent, man.
You really are. You're a rock star.
You really are. Should we talk about Barbie?
Oh man.
What's that ride been like?
I've never worked with a director like Greta, and I think in all and every director teaches you something different. I think Greta taught me so much, and not just Greta, but like being on set with Margot and Ryan. It was just like aces. It was an all-star cast, and everyone, Will Ferrell, Kate McKinnon, these like SNL pros that are just so fucking funny.
Yeah.
And it's like every take is completely different, but so usable. And I think I take a lot of those memories with me, and I feel like it just made me so much of a better actor. Greta is so amazingly collaborative in how, she, like, the script was, the movie was in the page right from day one. It was like, we read that script and we were like, holy shit, this movie is going to be huge. Like, you could tell. But then, just the fact that she could have that distinctive a vision and still be so wonderful and so collaborative on the day and so receptive to ideas, I think made me realize, like, you don't have to be an asshole in Hollywood. Like, there's no, like, just because you're an auteur or like, just because you're like a director's director of a certain caliber, like that somehow entitles you to be a terrible person.
Yeah, listen to this advice.
Great.
I'm well, never mind.
I kid. He's the nicest guy.
I know it. I know it. I mean, we knew it would be big. We didn't realize. I mean, I think what has been just so incredible is like seeing the Barbenheimer of it. These two movies could exist simultaneously and could just like energize the industry in such a way that we're coming off of a summer where like a lot of movies where I feel like on the page or in the room felt like this is an ace. This is an ace in the hole. This is like gonna get us our 500 million, whatever. We're failing. And so I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty in the industry about, okay, what works now? What will get people out? And as it turns out, it's just two really great original movies from like solid filmmakers, And
so when you say original, you mean not created by AI?
Yeah. I feel like Barbie is the one movie, and Ryan Gosling said this at one point. He was like, Barbie is proof that like AI could never write that. It's so
because it's
weird
new and original
and original, and like and Greta's storytelling is just so unique that like just a movie like that could not exist unless there was a weird eccentric person behind it, just writing the page.
You can rip it off. AI can rip it off then make a less good one.
A less good.
You can make a lot of copies.
Totally emotionally empty version of it. Yeah.
Which some people do value emotional emptiness, but
no, it's okay to live that way. just
art should make you feel.
You don't want to over emotion.
I feel stupid, slightly embarrassed, and saying, so how are you paying back? How are you going to use all of this attention coming your way? Because the truth is, after sitting here for a while, it feels like you walk in the door, just walk in the door and you're giving back, because you are all, you are, shit, now I'm going to get in over my head. But you are an example to so many people who have been cut out of this industry for so long. You're an example of grace as you walk in the door. You're all of these examples that are changing people's lives just by you being you walking in the door. So I felt like my question was an implication of, hey, you need to give back kind of thing. And that's so full of shit. So please accept my apology and know that I do see you.
But first of all, Ted, you're welcome. And
thank you.
And you're welcome, everybody. No, I mean,
could you do me a favor and walk in one more time?
Yeah.
Just because it wears off once you sit down.
Strut in.
No,
I just want to ask you one question before we wrap this up about your debut single, "Don't."
Oh
I
my God.
I didn't know about this.
Oh yeah.
You never told me.
I didn't know. I didn't want you to make fun of me.
No, I would never. But what about it?
What about it? Yeah, I guess I fancy myself a singer sometimes. I know you do too. Okay, I know.
I don't know about that.
This guy's a good Elvis impersonator. I'm sure he's regaled you with many Elvis impersonations over the years.
And what was the music? What was the music like?
I had an opportunity to be in the Shang-Chi soundtrack. So I have a song on the Shang-Chi soundtrack with a record label called 88 Rising, which is like an Asian American focused record label. And I don't know how I weaseled my way onto the soundtrack, but I was like, I kind of was just hanging around the studio being like, hey, what you guys doing? Do you mind if I step in there? And then somehow it came out with a song called Hot Soup, which was, it's like a cool little thing, but it had like a couple million streams on Spotify. And then again, weaseled my way more and was like, so we should probably keep doing this, right? Like, you want to make an album maybe? And the people at the label were kind enough to say, yeah, sure, fuck around, learn your sound. And that's kind of what I've been doing for the last year. Just on my spare time and with the single that came out was just, now that it's out in the world, I kind of feel like I want to make more. And it's that thing of like growing up, I would just like see people acting and performing and I just want to do it. There was whenever I saw someone doing something interesting, I'd be like, I want to do it somehow. And just watching people perform live is just there's such a magic around it. And I'm dying to do it and I need songs in order to do it. So, I'm gonna keep making music as long as the label will let me, and I haven't been booted off yet. And hopefully at some point I'll play something for you and everyone.
That'd
live.
be cool.
Great, man.
Great.
That's
Thank
so
you.
cool. I can't wait to listen to it.
Thank
I didn't
you.
even know about it till I read this thing. Yeah.
I read the brief.
So
Yeah.
cool.
There
What
you
a
go.
pleasure. What a pleasure.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
guys.
coming, buddy.
Thank you, man.